So thank you for being here. Once we get the high sign, we'll get started. And we have it. All right. All right, we're going to open up the meeting. Welcome to the Thursday, October 13th, 2022 Xenia City Council regular meeting. At this time, we will have an invocation led by Pastor Richard Buford, First United Christian Church. Pastor, thank you for being here. We'll have you take the podium. If everybody will stand for that invocation, and that'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Thomas Scrivens.
Gracious Father, we're truly grateful to be present and that your grace and your love be present here for this meeting. And we just ask that your grace and your love be present for this council, because this is the city of hospitality, and we just want you to share your grace so that they will continue to be unified, not only for council but for the city of Xenia, dear Heavenly Father, so that they will continue to lead this city in the way that they should go, because we know that is your will, and that is also their will. So we just ask that you continue to lead them and let them look to the hills from which cometh their help, because we know that their help comes from you. We just ask all of this in your dear, holy, and precious name. We pray this day. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Pastor Buford. Thank you, Councilman Scrivens. We'll call the meeting to order at this time and ask for a roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel.
Here.
Councilman Scrivens.
Present.
Councilwoman Dean. Here. Councilman Branham.
Here.
Councilman Dean. Mayor Mays. Here. President Smith.
Here. Next on the agenda is approval of minutes for the September 22nd, 2022 regular meeting. This time I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes, please.
Mr. President, I have a comment. Before we accept the minutes. Page 19, Madam Clerk. Page 19.
Yes.
Just after council comments, my statement, the last line. We're going to change the tense from was to is, and we're going to change the they to we.
I write them in third person.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Also, Mr. President, if I could, I'd like to call your attention back to page 14, and that I'd like the record to reflect that the discussion that we had over ordinance 2022-17 regarding, it said, the quote said, due to recent acts of vandalism and after-hours unruliness at Lexington Park. Well, the chief of police said there was no acts of violence or of vandalism, and the unruliness was at best a question mark. So like that to be known, and that the gates was not decided on by council, it was decided on by staff. And I'm told that no one in the area who lived there was asked about that. Oh yeah, I'm going to the map. So
Didn't we vote on that?
yeah, we voted 6-1 on that.
Okay.
So just want to let you know. And just saying that in item 1 on page 13, you know, the notion that the parking lot was grossly oversized for the park, that's equivocal. Okay? The parking lot now is not good for the park. What's going to happen at the park after the 12 or 15 spaces are filled up? So, just want to let you know that when you cut the park in half, you cut the usage in half. And, you know, the community has let me know that in no uncertain terms. And I want you to know that 80% of the parking lot has been done away with. So parking will be an issue on a continuous basis. Also, Mr. President, on page 15, I'd like to call your attention to the itemization and the cost. And nowhere on the itemization, even with the latest renditions, does it have anything about an operational bathroom there. And thanks to Councilman Urschel and his private efforts, the bathroom exterior has been restored. I don't expect a whole lot of action between now and the end of the season, but I do expect that bathroom to be up, running, and functional come spring. With that, I'll move approval of the minutes if there's no other comments.
All right. Thank you. So we have a motion to accept the minutes by Councilman Scrivens. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by the Vice President. All right. Any other comments or changes to the minutes? All right. This time we'll seek a roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is an opportunity for a special presentation. This time we have scheduled Chris Barnett from the Little Miami Watershed Network. Hello. Welcome. Good
Thank
evening.
you.
Yeah, thank you. So at this time we'll turn the floor over to Ms. Barnett, and you're welcome during your presentation to direct that from the podium.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think. Thank you very much for allowing me to come and speak with you tonight. I am a member of the Little Miami Watershed Network. We are a local nonprofit organization that stand for the Little Miami River. And you may be familiar with the river. Let me see if I get this to work. Yep. That she does flow through our area. She actually starts in Springfield and goes all the way down to the Ohio River in Cincinnati. Most people believe that the Little Miami and the Great Miami actually meet and join, but they do not. They actually run parallel to each other. So it's a standalone river. It was the first state and national scenic river in the state of Ohio. And within an hour's drive of that river, there are about 3 million people that live. So quite a few folks. What the Watershed Network stands for is the protection of the river. And we are a community organization that deals predominantly with projects. We do things like river cleanups, educational programs, public speaking programs, tributaries, tree planting, those kinds of things. And when we've been out and about, we've been asked one question about the Little Miami over and over again that kind of surprised us. And the question was, what's the river worth? To us, the river is worth a lot. We are canoers and kayakers, fishermen. We enjoy that river. But that wasn't the question. The question was, what's the dollar value behind it? What is it worth? Well, for a long time, that was a tough question to answer. Until a professor up at Ohio State came up with a way to answer it. And a gentleman by the name of Brent Songen, he is a professor in the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences, has been studying leisure time and recreational facilities throughout the state of Ohio, and he came up with a matrix to figure out what our leisure time is worth to us and how to solve that question of what's it worth. We did a 7-month-long study of 43 miles of the river. And it's the upper 43 miles. So we started in Springfield and went down to a place called Mather's Mill, which is just south of Oregonia. If you're not familiar with Oregonia, it's south of Waynesville. A lot of people look at me funny when I say Oregonia because they've never heard of it. So, little tiny town. Why did we only do the upper 43 miles? Well, if you would have asked me to do a 115-mile survey, I would have told you no, because that's a little much. And the survey wasn't your standard survey. It wasn't your go with a pen and piece of paper, stand out in the middle of a park and ask questions. You know as well as I do, we all skirt those. We try to avoid them at all costs. This survey was conducted for 7 months, and it consisted of 22 volunteers picking 35 sites along that 43 mile. How were the sites chosen? Well, they were chosen because they were either right against the river or right on a bike path that led you to the river. 2 days between Monday and Friday, and 1 day on the weekend, we would go out to that facility, leave a piece of paper on the vehicle, count the number of vehicles that were in there so we could figure out how many people had been in the facility. And the piece of paper had a QR code on it, and it also had a website on it. And you could go to the survey by either going to the QR code or going through the website. We were very blessed and we were very lucky. We got a 17% return rate on surveys. If you've ever been involved in surveys, most of them get about 7 to 8%. We know there's a lot of people that are real interested in this river because we got a 17% return rate. The initial survey was 7 questions. If you wanted to answer more, you could. And the majority of that 17% actually answered more. We found that 836,000 trips were taken to 45 sites along the river. Now, when I say trips, I'm not talking people. I'm talking vehicles. So it could be 1 person or it could be 5. So multiply that even by 2, and you're already over 1.5 million people are visiting these sites along the river. That tells me that this upper portion of the river is well loved and well visited. But what does that mean for Xenia? Within Xenia and Xenia Township, and yes, I lumped the 2 of you together, was 119,317 trips taken to 5 sites along the river. So even if you double that again, you're talking almost 300,000 people. That's a lot of people visiting this river. Now, what were the sites? The 68 crossing it, the Little Miami, and I'll tell you that was our least visited site. Wow. Old Town Reserve, Fairgrounds Road at the Little Miami River, okay, Xenia Station, and Glady Run. Now, let me give a caveat to Xenia Station. When we visited Xenia Station, we did not count anybody that was using your waterscape. Why? Because we knew that they weren't going anywhere and they were staying right there. They weren't going to visit the river. They were coming to see you and coming to see your waterscape. So we left those folks' numbers, those vehicles that were parked right up against it, out of our data. Anybody else that was parked in that facility was counted. The largest number of trips occurred in May and June. Not surprising, kids are just getting out of school, summer's just starting. Xenia Station and the bike path in downtown Corwin ranked the highest in the visitation for biking. Yellow Springs came in third. And participants spent an average of 2.5 hours on their visit to these sites. So they were biking out somewhere, they were canoeing, they were kayaking, they were fishing. So what does this mean monetarily? Of the 43 miles of the river, they were able to estimate $14.9 million a year on just the northern portion of the river. Now, it says recreational impact. Let me explain that. Recreational impact, that dollar amount comes from 2 things. One is your hard dollar, which is your gasoline, your lunch, you're going to Dairy Queen, fishing bait, tackle, canoe, those kinds of things. It's about 1/3 of the total number is that hardscape. So if you round it up to 15 million, figure 5 million of that is the hard number. The other portion of that is what's called consumer surplus. And financial director, you may be familiar with consumer surplus. Consumer surplus basically is, where do you like to spend your leisure time? Where do you like to spend your leisure money? If you could put a dollar amount to time, that's what consumer surplus is. So what does that mean for Xenia? That means that people spent, this says 1.9 million, we've actually upped that to $2.1 million in the Xenia Township area. Even if you only took the third of that is your hard dollars, you're still talking over $500,000 that's coming into Xenia from your hardscape money from the river, from people utilizing the bike path and the river. The average participant was 45. So you're bringing in a lot of that middle-aged, middle-income folks coming into Xenia to utilize your community. So why did we do it? Well, if you figure the river, 43 miles of it at $346,500 per mile per year. So each mile of the river, the upper 43 miles of the river, is worth $346,000. Why did we put the survey together? Well, we put the survey together to answer that question, why? To us, the river is important because of all the things we like to do on it. To the folks that were asking us, well, those are people like yourselves who have big questions to answer and lots of people to answer them too. And when you get pushed as to why are we not developing this, or why are we not allowing that, or why did you put this there or that there, here's your numbers that you can come back and say, this river and this bike path and this park is worth this amount of money in our community. They'd answer some of your questions for you. The river, we know, is bringing people into our community. It's bringing a lot of families. It's retaining a lot of our younger generation. It's helping build that connection between the environment and the local community. And more than ever, it needs your help because we're getting more and more pressure, more and more development, more and more pollution, more and more things dying off on our river. Questions that I can answer about our survey, what we did, why we did it, how it's important to you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for your presentation. I had read this before your presentation. I was thoroughly impressed. I liked what you called it recreational impact and not economic impact.
Correct.
There's a quality of life that we're trying to pursue
Absolutely.
here, and this is definitely pursuing that.
Yep.
I appreciate your efforts.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, your printed material here is excellent. Thank you very much for the efforts that
We
you
are
put into that.
blessed to have Ohio State helping us with that and having the knowledge of Ohio State having already done this. So we appreciate it. Appreciate you letting me come and chat with you and share the information. You have a complete copy of the survey. That's what's in your packet. If you have questions about the numbers or where the, what the survey results were, please reach out to us through our website. I was fully immersed in this. I think I saw every site we visited throughout that 7 months, at least a dozen times or more, So I'd be more than happy to chat with you about it. So, and thanks for letting me come and chat with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Got one more question for you.
Sure.
So this little brochure here, 1
Yes.
through 10 things you can do to help with storm runoff. Is it possible that the city could apply this in our water bill sometime? Sure. Yeah.
And you are more than welcome to copy that.
Yeah.
We don't have the rights to it. We with their approval, we borrowed it from Dayton City Water and tweaked it a little to make it work for the Little Miami.
So this phone number here, this is 376-7269. Is that a city number, or is that your organization's number? There's a phone number here about questions about storm runoff.
That's probably a city number.
Okay. All right. Great.
Yeah, because that's not directly to us.
Good. All right. Thank you so much. Does
Thank you.
anyone on council have anything else?
No, I just love canoeing on the rivers every year.
Awesome.
And I like the smallmouth at Fairground Road, so.
Smallmouth bass is one of the best fishing in Little Miami.
Yeah.
Best in the area.
But I didn't know it started in Springfield. I did know it went all the way down to the Ohio River. So one of these days I'm gonna get bold enough to get a canoe. And
You know, they used to race.
I know, yeah,
They used to canoe race.
yeah.
Even down in this area. So, which surprised me. I've seen photos of it. So, fun. Great. Appreciate it. You
Great.
folks have a good evening.
Excellent job. Thank you so much. Moving on, we're going to go to audience comments.
Mr. President, if I may, real quick. I just wanted to say Levi had an emergency on the job. He isn't in like an accident. He just water spraying everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
Business.
He should be here in like 5 minutes, but
Okay.
I mean, it is a short meeting, so.
yeah.
So I think, given the events of the week, I'd like to make a motion that we
Go ahead and excuse.
excuse him
Well, sure.
on being here.
I'll second that.
Yeah, so we have a motion by the Vice President, seconded by Councilman Scrivens to excuse Councilman Dean for tonight's absence. So can we get a roll call on that?
Yeah, he was on a job and had an emergency, so him personally did not have an emergency. Sorry.
I just didn't hear that part.
That
Vice
is-
President Urschel?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Brandon?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, thank you. All right, and you know, we did know moving their meetings from 7 to 6 a year and a half ago was a little hard for the working class
Somebody's in
people
business,
sometimes
right.
to get here, so. But now is our opportunity for audience comments. If anyone in the audience would care to come to the podium, address city council, if you could give us your name, address for the record, limit your comments 3 to 4 minutes, please. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Byung Choi. I'm living in the 620 Jody Drive in Xenia, Ohio. I just brought here the concern I have, just like recently changed the regulation. Respecting regulation and city law, but last change for regulation I'm receiving from city, it make me put violation of myself every other 2 weeks. That's why I'm here for it. I have a little camper in the parking of my house, and I have a driveway, expanded driveway, in the parking in front of my house, not on the side of a house. But I received a letter from city, and I have to move my camper to side of a house or back side of the house. But city allowed the parking that the side or back side. But unfortunately, my house built at the expanded driveway, and the left side, right side has a gas line and electric pole. So I have no place to move my camper. But I regulate it for my camper. I'm thinking summertime only. For winter time, I'll put it in storage space. And summertime only I do it. But I'll bring the camper, get ready next trip, get ready for it, everything, make sure okay, and move back to the camping site and come back. But city regulation for 72 hours, that is allowed to right to, for I have to violation the rule every other 2 weeks. Because when I go to camper, I bring my camping set to home, making sure everything good.
Right.
But it's a problem is 72 hours. And I'm not even parking on my car on the street.
Right.
I'm parking on my, expanding my driveway to make sure nobody bother, nobody has for anything dangerous. But problem is 72 hours. I cannot be meet that requirement, and they're causing me violation over and over, and I don't like it. And I like to stay in the rule. So I want to see if anyway they expanding the time, the more long hour to get prepared next trip, or if I have it like in my case, my house is built an expanded driveway to make a 3-car garage, so I can make a storage space extra. But problem is that causing no space I can build all the way. So left, right side has no place I can make it. So I really don't mind to put in this camp on during summertime, winter time with the storage space. But summertime, maybe there have to be other thinking a little bit to make us see what that can be to we can do not violate the law. And also, I like it for each neighbor I have been asking before I put my camper there. And I've been asking my neighbor, front, left, everybody. ever no issue, no concern. So I put in parking there. But now I have to violate the law. And it's not a cost of fine issue because fine is that I have to pay if I violate the law, but I don't want to violate it over and over. That's my concern. And I'd like to see if a city considers that to review that policy again. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Michelle, could you repeat his name, please?
First name is Byoung, B-Y-O-U-N-G. Last name C-H-O-I, Choi.
Thank you, Mr.
All
Chair.
right, thank you very much. Also, at this time, anyone else in the audience care to come and address City Council? Now's your opportunity.
I'm Everett Rasnick, live at 545 North Columbus. I'm here tonight to gripe about the code enforcement. One says put a privacy fence up. I come in yesterday to submit the plans, and the guy I had to submit to told me no. I could not put a privacy fence up. The best thing for me to do is move, get a place out in the country and move. He told me I'm not even allowed a stick of firewood on my property. So which one do I go by? The code enforcement or the other one? That's all I got to say.
All right, thank you. Sure, I understand that. Okay, all right, thank you, sir. Anyone else care to come forward at this time? All right, thank you. Got it. I understand. Okay. All right, very good. Next on our agenda is old business. Our first item in old business is a public hearing. This is ordinance 2022-39. This is approving the conveyance of 0.05 acres of city-owned property to Brian Ryan. This was introduced by Councilman Dean at our last meeting. In his absence, I will introduce that tonight and ask my colleagues for opportunity to motion a second after the public hearing. So this time I will open the public hearing on this item and ask anyone in the audience if they would care to come forward and speak in favor of approving the sale of property to Mr. Brian Ryan. All right, if anyone in the audience would care to speak against this conveyance of property, now's your opportunity to do so. Okay. All right, seeing no one come forward either for or against, I will close the public hearing at this time and ask any of my colleagues if they have any questions or concerns regarding this.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so this, just for folks who may not be aware, this is a cleanup of an easement that dates back to when the school was there before the tornado. And and Brent, let me know if I'm getting off base with this, but it's a little sliver that's on the backside of the senior center there. As we're looking to do the conveyance or sell that property, the problem is that this is, even though there's an easement on his parcel, there's not an easement on our parcel. And so there was some confusion in terms of where the easements were. And so I think the staff recommended that we just go ahead and convey that to him and not try and sell it with an easement and forward that. And
By
it's
him
not
being the adjacent property.
Right. It's not really being used by the parking lot there, and just to make that a lot cleaner. So I think this is a good thing, especially as we're looking to sell that parcel and not encumber it by problems that got incurred from the tornado in the past. Brent, is that a fair statement?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. President, I was just curious. I'm surprised that Brian Ryan's not here. He was okay with this and
Yeah, I'm
everything
not
with
aware
his
of any-
whole
yeah.
his state and everything that he brought up at previous council meetings.
I think his concern was that the property would be, originally, the property would be sold and the easement wouldn't be honored.
Okay.
And despite, I think, some original reluctance of accepting the property, I think he understood ultimately that was the best way to
Right,
ensure
right.
that there would not be future
Okay.
problems.
And
I was
he-
just making sure.
He'd seen the easement on his parcel, and we sat down and talked with him afterwards, said, but you don't have an easement on the actual parcel you're using, and your parcel doesn't include that. And when he came and talked to us before, I don't think he realized that.
Right.
And so after we cleared that up, then he understood why we're doing this, right?
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure he was good with it because
Yeah.
previous council meetings he was kind of like, you know.
Yeah, I think his point was, why should I take the property if I already have an easement on it?
Yeah.
And we said, well, it's not a clear easement based upon the way things have been parceled out.
Perfect. Thanks.
All right, thank you. If there's no other comments or questions, I'll seek a roll call, please. Oh, I'm sorry. What? Yeah, I did. I already closed it. Mhm.
I need a second.
Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion for a second.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilwoman Dean. Motion by myself, seconded by Councilwoman Dean. This time we'll get a roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Our next item is new business. Our first item under new business is an introduction. This is to ordinance 2022-40. This is enacting chapters 219, 220, 21, 22, 23, 24, 31, 33, and 234, and enacting sections 232.01 to 232.03, amending sections 230.01 to 230.03, and repealing in their entirety chapters 236, 246, and 248, and a section 230.04 of the Administrative Code, as contained in Part 2 of the City Government Title 6 Administrative Code of the Xenia City Code. So at this time, I will turn this all over to our city manager for explanation.
Thank you, sir. Unfortunately, my introduction will be much longer than that title. But I think it's important that we put on the record for the public's benefit what the intention of this multitude of changes, what the intentions would be. So I'm going to kind of run down through these different sections and at least give a little bit of lip service. As council knows, through the course of this year, we have had numerous occasions with all of you regarding the need to update our administrative code and in the process to evaluate our potential opportunities to make substantive changes that might improve service delivery and accountability with and support for our staff. As follow-up action steps to this, the appointed officials have presented previously to the Legislative Review Committee and subsequently Council on the whole recommended changes to our law and finance sections for those departments. Those have been approved and pending implementation here at the beginning of the year. Last month, the third stage of this review and rewrite effort has advanced with a presentation to the Legislative Review Committee again for additional chapters of our administrative code, this to include the City Manager's Office chapter and then subsequent chapters of administrative departments under the City Manager's purview. In your agenda report, there's pretty detailed information on the recommended changes, but as I suggested earlier, I did want to kind of go down chapter by chapter and at least hit the highlights. So starting with chapter 219, this chapter deals with the City Manager's Office specifically. Again, just among the highlights, formally creates an office known as the City Manager's Office and stipulates the members of that office, including the City Manager, the Assistant City Manager, and the Secretary to the City Manager, and any other positions the Council would approve. Outlines the powers and duties of the City Manager pursuant with the Charter, formally recognizes the Assistant City Manager position, which is important in our succession planning. Additionally, provides for an opportunity for the City Manager to authorize rents of public facilities, so think the pavilion at Shawnee Park, for up to 1 year to establish rates for those. Again, systems that are in place today, but this is reiterating these in code. One thing that's a little that we wanted to clarify in these next two sections in 219.5 and .6 is the authority of the City Manager's Office in states of emergency to declare those states, again, pursuant to state or county disasters, but also have some capacity locally. And then we also added language in cases of inclement weather or in cases where utility systems or digital systems might be down to be able to close city facilities in the interest of public safety and operational operational effectiveness, and so that wasn't one new addition to these authorities. And so again, 219 lays out the city manager's office. Next is enacting Chapter 220, which would create a new Department of Administrative Services. Here we are seeking to consolidate and realign internal service functions from a number of areas around the city, again, for the purposes of efficiency. With all of these changes, I should note there would be 4 core departments that would fall under the city manager's purview. The Department of Public Safety, a Public Service Department, this Administrative Services Department, and then we'll mention in a moment a Development Services Department. But for this Chapter 220, for this Administrative Services Department, essentially what we are looking to do is create this department with divisions for support services, public relations, personnel management, and information technology. The 220.02 establishes an unclassified department head for this position that we would know as would be known as the Administrative Services Director. It outlines the powers and duties of that position. My intent is to take our current Human Resources Director, Jackie Potter, and transition her into this position, being mindful that some of her current HR responsibilities would be redirected or otherwise lessened due to efficiency with software and some other purposes. Additional divisions that we're looking to add here, the Support Services Division would essentially provide administrative support for a lot of the departments and divisions that don't have clerical staff, so we centralize those support functions. That's outlined in here. They would also continue to manage the permitting processes for the various things that the city manager's office would issue permits for, so over-the-street banners, for example. They would also be responsible to manage the rental of the city facilities that we do. Again, the example would be the pavilion at Xenia at the Shawnee Park. And they would also manage various intergovernmental and service accounts. Again, that's just financial management on behalf of various city programs. So that's the Support Services Division. We also would look to create, really in more defined language, a Public Relations Division, which is already a function that exists, but this would create a division for it. Again, this office already exists with a Public Relations Coordinator that we're identifying here, and it's responsible for all of the public communications that the city would do. Social media, newsletter, community outreach, media releases, all of those sorts of things, in addition to helping to coordinate our special events that are sanctioned by the city. Chapter 223 would recognize our personnel management division. Essentially, this is our current HR department that would transition to a division under this particular department. And again, doing all the things that they do today in terms of benefits management and support for the hiring and so forth with employees. Chapter 224 would round out the Administrative Services Department, and this would establish an Information Technology Division. In this case, we are taking what is a standalone department under the Finance Department. Yes, I said a department under a department, which is part of the reason we need to clean this up, and create a division for this set of functions under the City Manager's Office. The primary reason we are looking to move IT under the City Manager's Office is because the vast majority of support that they provide are for services that the City Manager is responsible for, and we feel like this is an integral part of internal service support that should be aligned with some of these other functions here. So there's a trade-off between the City Manager's Office and Finance, some of which we discussed with you previously, where certain functions my office is doing today would go under Finance. In exchange, things like IT would be housed under the City Manager's Office. So again, that's Chapter 224. With that, the current IT Director position would be retitled our Chief Information Officer, consistent with similar positions in other organizations. So that's Chapter 224. Wanted to highlight Chapter 230. In this case, we are looking to take various existing small departments and consolidate them under a newly formed Development Services Department. So presently we have a planning department that consists of 3 people, a development department that consists of 2 people, just departments that really are not very large departments. And so in this case we want to create some synergy and consolidate, and we think it's appropriate to combine a number of these functions under one department umbrella. So in this particular case, we would create an economic development division, a community development division, a planning division, which would be responsible for code enforcement, and a building inspection division. Planning, economic, and community development would continue to oversee the core functions that they're responsible for today. Building inspection is one piece that's sort of a new addition here. That is authorized in our code today, but we are consolidating various references to building inspection under this, and in the language it authorizes an opportunity for there to be an in-house division for provision of these services, or through contractual services, or a combination of both. Given council's recent directives for us to explore alternatives for this service delivery, we wanted to be sure we had the flexibility written into this code that wherever you arrive or elect that you want to move forward with these services, that we've got the code functions built into Xenia codified ordinances to facilitate that. So that's the purpose with that. What we've determined is, at this point, for financial reasons, we feel it's imprudent to hire an additional director for these services. So I've talked with the assistant city manager, and we would expand his scope of responsibility, again taking certain aspects away from him, but giving him charge over this department to serve as the director for these functions as we would consolidate these things. So Jared would step in and play that role for us. So we think these are very important changes in this particular area. Again, chapters 231, 32, 33 detail some of these. A lot of it is just carrying over the current functions. 234 then, as I said, details more specifically the building inspection function. So we're making some substantive changes, or recommending some substantive changes to structure here. Changes of this order and magnitude have not been approached by the city in a very long time. So we've essentially been operating under a system that's 40, 50 years old in a world that's changing very rapidly. So we are looking to improve efficiency, improve communication, improve accountability, and we can do that without making a lot of expenditure, simply by aligning services where they make sense to be together, having proper span of control and oversight, and in some cases, as with building inspection, looking potentially at alternative service delivery. So we presented this legislation to the Legislative Review Committee, had a lot of discussion about this. I think it was well vetted, and a few tweaks resulting from that to arrive at what you have here this evening. If approved, these changes would be added with the Finance and Law Department changes, all taking effect January 1, 2023. So you would see these changes reflected in the budget that would move forward for 2023. And in anticipation of council hopefully embracing all of these changes, we've already begun looking at, from a human capital management standpoint, what's going to be involved in this, and making sure that we're planning for that transition. So be happy to answer any questions. I know that was a long soliloquy there, but again, given the nature of these and the volume of it, I thought it important to at least touch on each of these areas.
Thank you. Questions for the city manager? All right. Anyone?
Mr. President?
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, in terms of span of control, how many people now would be reporting to you under this management structure?
Well, granted that our charter requires that the city manager also serve as the public safety director, there are 3 direct reports in communications, fire, EMS, and police that would continue to report directly to me. Obviously, the assistant city manager would continue to report directly to me, secretary to the city manager, the public service director, and the administrative services director. So you're at 7, 8 people, which is about right where you want to be.
I'm about twice as much.
Yeah, I'm about 11 or 12 right now, and as I've talked with council, we want to operate in an open door environment in our office, and I think that's very important to be accessible to subordinates so that they have an open door. That makes it hard to get a lot of other things done, to be at external meetings, and because there's a pretty constant turnover in my office in terms of people coming in. So I think this helps to balance that out. It provides some opportunity for some growth and leadership with the assistant city manager. And again, we are taking some things, as we presented previously, from the city manager's umbrella and putting that under finance, which helps to fill out their book of work as well. So we feel like it's a pretty good balance in terms of span of control and workload.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to add that the mayor chairs this committee, and we met on and on and on. We hashed out almost every line in this, so we're reporting this back to the council with our full support. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vice President.
So, Brent, this is the legislation that goes with this. We've already had the discussions at multiple work sessions about this, and so this is coming out of that, this is the legislation that allows you to move forward and actually put that in place.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. In addition, I should clarify. In addition to making these changes, we have certain functions, and information technology is a great example. That's a significant expenditure. It's a mission critical component of our services. If you look through our current code, you will not find a reference to an information technology department, and that is a problem. And so those are the types of things historically that have occurred that this legislation would also help to clean up.
Right.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, who would care to introduce?
I'll introduce it.
All right, introduced by the mayor. Thank you. Our next item is also an introduction. This is amending section 618.11 titled Hunting of the Xenia City Code. So at this time, we'll turn the floor back over to our city manager.
Thank you, sir. Gather my notes here. Presently, City Code prohibits hunting under any circumstances and limits use of weapons to control nuisance fowl and vermin under the Public Safety Director's authority. However, our existing code language essentially fails to define things like nuisance birds and infesting vermin. These terms are not specifically defined in code, and the code does not prescribe any particular policy or procedure relative to how these control measures should be employed. Staff believes that the current language is really too restrictive and limits our ability where residents are experiencing problems with nuisance animals. Believe it or not, this is something we get called about on a very regular basis. We're in a city of, 25, 27,000 people, but a lot of us have problems with deer, I should say. Geese, whether it's the golf course, Shawnee Park, private residences, persistent problems with these issues. So after a lot of public feedback, after a lot of discussion among the police division, law department, with my office, we're proposing some amendments to 618.11 in our code, which would allow for some limited utilization of means to help address some of these nuisance animals. Specifically, the legislation would allow use of bow and arrow for the purpose of managing nuisance fowl and quadrupeds as defined in the proposed language. These changes were presented to the Legislative Review and Government Affairs Committee on August 23rd. A majority of the group endorsed these measures. There was some good-spirited discussion, and I think, frankly, some good questions that were asked. We want to note that pursuant to the legislation, any individual seeking an application to manage this issue would have to do so under the auspices and control of ODNR. So there are nuisance animal licenses and tags that individuals can pursue through ODNR. So this would be regulated under Ohio regulations for these animals. But again, we are trying to solve some problems the residents have, and this may not be the best option pursuant to what some of those folks want, but we think it's a step that can at least help. So with that, we would answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you. Questions for the city manager? All right,
So I have some.
yeah.
So who do we think is going to be using the bow and arrow in the city?
As in,
and as you said, this is going to be regulated by ODNR. Is this someone who's been checked out by them, and we're allowing them to do this within the city after they have some flavor of permit from ODNR?
Yeah. So for example, if you, ODNR does have nuisance deer tags that can be acquired.
Right.
So if you demonstrate, to our local ODNR office, you can get those tags. Okay. The problem is that even if ODNR would authorize in the city right now,
we don't allow it. Right.
We don't allow any form of hunting, regardless of what the instrument to use in that hunting process is. So we had one particular resident, and this is not based on his particular circumstance, but it's a great example.
Sure.
He's got about a 3 or 4 acre tract of property, residential here in the city. Lives sort of on the periphery of the community, but it's a residentially zoned area.
Right.
He has what I think anyone would qualify as an infestation of deer, and he has invested a lot in landscaping. And it's not just small plants; they're eating trees.
Yeah.
And so, in fact, he provided some video and some stills to us, and there are nearly 24 deer in his yard, and he said this is a regular occurrence. So he has no means of dealing with that right now. That's just one example. Geese are another significant problem for us. A lot of other quadrupedal vermin as we define in here. But yeah, there are some regulations that have to be met under ODNR, and what this would authorize is under the authority of the Public Safety Director to come up with a program for an application, a permit to be able to do this. It would have to involve notification with the police division that it's occurring, some other regulations, but it would give us at least some means to be able to provide a solution to individuals, or an option.
So to clarify, they would have to get a permit, not just through ODNR, but through the city as well, notify police, and then that is a designated spot. It's not to just go around Xenia with
On
your
their
boat,
property
on your
only.
scooter,
Yep,
deciding
it would-
where to do this.
Right. It would be on their property only. It would authorize the resident or someone authorized by the resident, again pursuant to ODNR regulations, and through our regulations in-house, we would require that they give us specific dates that they might be doing this, the individuals who would be responsible, and again, we would make sure the police division is aware of that, so that we're not getting reports of, someone hunting on their property unlawfully, so.
All right, thank you. Other questions?
I just think we've made some order out of what would be chaos for some people. We're giving our residents at least a tool to put in their tool bag.
Yeah.
And I used to be a health inspector in a couple of places over in Fairborn. Guy had his crossbow set up and his fake deer out in the yard, and so that's what they do. So that's what they do.
So, question, we're not allowed to release a firearm in the city. What about a like a BB gun or a pellet gun? Are you allowed to like pop a critter with that?
That is an after the meeting question.
I would almost defer to Chief. He is here. I think as long as you're not creating
Chief may not
a safety hazard, right, Chief? Again,
Because I get that question all the time. Because people they'll catch a, like a
It's not legal.
baby skunk.
So what I think I would point out, Mr. President, first is that for certain categories of nuisance animal, we do have services available the city will provide, where we have a firm that we hire that comes out and traps, and they will either properly release or euthanize depending on the circumstance. So if you have nuisance skunk, is a great example. We get frequent calls for skunk, and other small quadrupeds. Now we can't deal with deer. Geese is another one that we really can't deal with because the individual, these nuisance firms, their licenses are through ODNR, and so there's only certain things they can do. So what we would advise is that you not take matters into your own hand and pop the critter, but rather call the city manager's office or the front desk here at our facility, and we can try to get some services out and safely and effectively deal with those vermin, and that way they're gone and it's done effectively.
All right, great.
So I'm, Mr. President.
Yeah.
So there's a matter of wisdom in terms of the issuance of the permit, right? So somebody's got 1/8 of an acre downtown, and they see a deer passing through their yard, they're probably not going to get this issued to them.
And I think that's the key. There needs to be some discernment with administratively, because this is not a one-size-fits-all.
Sure.
And I think that's a very
we have
good point.
folks that have larger parcels of property on the periphery of the city, and there's a flavor of being in the township when the township is right across the road from you at that point. And that's where the deer's living, is across the road as they wander onto your property. So, yeah.
Yep.
All right, thank you. All right, and all we're seeking tonight is an introduction. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, who we care? Introduced by Councilwoman Dean.
Can I make one other statement?
Yes.
This was no disparagement to the township that they have deer that wander into the city. I just want to let everybody know. We're not disparaging the township. That was a for instance, okay?
We will welcome deer from the township.
That's right, okay.
All right. City Clerk, to get that introduced by Councilwoman Dean. Our next item is Resolution 2022-MMM. This is approving a consent legislation for the ODOT Municipal Bridge Inspection Program. So again, we'll turn this over to Mr. Merriman.
Thank you. These next two items should be much more brief. So this resolution is a housekeeping measure. You may remember seeing these in the past. but it's to allow the city's continued participation in ODOT's Municipal Bridge Inspections Program. Our engineering staff was recently notified by ODOT, indicating that our current 3-year agreement expires on December 31st of this year. Accordingly, staff requests that the presented preliminary legislation be adopted by council so that the city can continue to be included in ODOT's bridge inspection program. If authorized, ODOT would proceed with the new 3-year agreement for bridge inspection services to the city. We would receive that actual contract next year, and we bring that back for approval. This is what they call their preliminary legislative approval, so why we have to do it twice, I don't know, but that is their procedure. So again, a housekeeping measure just so that we can continue to participate in that program. And I should point out that that's a great program because they're providing free inspection services essentially to the city. Otherwise, we would have to pay for all those individual bridge inspections. So.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Merriman? All right.
Mr. President, just want to thank him. Looks like we're saving $2,400 a year. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
at least. Yeah, at least.
So that's
and there's
definitely a star on your board there.
Yeah, just to be clear, there are a number of bridges in the city that are either the state or county engineers' responsibility, but there are a lot of bridges that we're municipally responsible for. So any of those municipal bridges, we would otherwise have to evaluate on a regular basis, and this allows us a program to have that done.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. All right. Do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Moved by the mayor. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Dean. If there's no further questions, we'll ask for a roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So our next item leads right into it is Resolution 2022-NNN. This is authorizing the execution of the local public agency agreement with ODOT for the Bellbrook Avenue from South Allison Avenue to West 2nd Street resurfacing project. So, Mr. City Manager, would you care to bring us up to speed on that?
Yes, sir. Thank you. In October of 2021, the city applied for and was subsequently awarded Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act funds. This was through programming with MVRPC, and the specific project was to rehabilitate a portion of Bellbrook Avenue, and this would be from South Allison Avenue to West 2nd Street, and this would be a project for 2023. The city's engineering estimate for the project is $404,054.35. The program, the grant program itself specifies a cost-sharing split of 57.7% from federal resources and 42.3% from local funding for the project. So on a dollar basis, this means that the city's share of the project, our match would be $170,777.35. The city would actually be letting this project and bidding it out and overseeing the construction of the improvements. Officials at ODOT have requested City Council take formal legislative action as presented this evening to authorize the execution of their standard LPA agreement, and that we return that as soon as possible so that both they and we can program that into their budgets for the grant for the city respectively for 2023. So we're requesting that approval this evening.
All right, thank you. Any questions for City Manager?
I just had one. Brent, how many lane miles roughly is that? Do you have a sense?
No, I do not. I can tell you that this is the last leg of Bellbrook that needed to be complete, so this would get that entire stretch. I'd have to look it up, Councilman, to be honest. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
It's just, the only reason I'm bringing that up is just the cost.
Yeah, and that's really reflective as we
No,
share with council.
I'm not disparaging anybody. That's what it costs.
That's the main artery.
But
it's a huge amount of money for what seems like a fairly short. Yeah.
But that's what.
Now, granted, this is a pretty wide stretch of road as well.
Right. It's 3 lane miles.
Yep.
Or within that there. But it's I think a lot of times folks, as from that income tax, we get guaranteed to spend $800,000 a year on the roads, and just this small portion of Lower Bellbrook is half of that total budget if we had to pay for it all ourselves. So kudos for Chris and the guys getting the other money, but the repaving costs are just through the roof these days.
Yeah, we've seen on average, and this is not just locally, this is in the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission region, we've seen about a 20 to 25% increase in road construction projects in fiscal year 22. I think over the near term, I would look for that to get worse and not better.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion to proceed?
So
Moved by Councilman Branham. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Dean. Any other questions for the city manager? All right, so we'll seek approval and a roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next on the agenda is a procedural motion to change our November 24th and December 26th council meeting dates due to holidays. Per the city's council regular meeting schedule, the second meeting in November always falls on Thanksgiving Day, which is an observed holiday and requires a change in the meeting date. This year, it's recommended that the November 24th meeting be held on the preceding Tuesday, which will fall on November 22nd, and that time would be moved to 5 o'clock. Also, the second meeting in December falls on December 22nd, but in an effort to allow more time for year-end closeout, as well as being considerate of council, staff, and council members' personal holiday schedules, staff respectfully requests moving the second meeting in December to Wednesday, December 28th, and that meeting will also be at 5 o'clock. All right, do you have any questions? So this time I'll make that motion and seek a second.
I'll second.
Seconded by the mayor. And that gives you guys enough time to get everything done.
Yep.
This year, the way the holiday falls, offices will be closed on Friday, is that correct?
Yeah, we'll be closed for an extended weekend, preceding and just after the weekend with the way the holiday falls, yeah.
All right, very good. If there's no other questions, we'll seek a roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Next is the opportunity for appointed officials reports. Madam Law Director is out tonight, so we'll move right to our Finance Department. Mr. Lake, do you have anything for us tonight?
I do not have anything to add. I don't have anything to add.
Nothing else. Okay, any questions for our acting finance director tonight? All right, thank you for being here. And you're off the hook. So next is the city manager, Mr. Merriman. Do we have anything else you'd like to report tonight?
A lot I could say, but I just want to offer a big thanks to all of our organizers, sponsors, and volunteers for our Harvest Fest last week, Harvest on Main, and the folks who coordinated the Oktoberfest. We had a much larger than expected turnout, very, very robust attendance. The vendors all did spectacularly. God bless us with wonderful weather, beautiful foliage, so it was a great sort of usher in. It's the fall season here in Xenia, so we want to thank everybody for a very, very successful program.
How many pumpkins did you pass out to the kids?
Oh my gosh, it was, I want to say 700 or 800.
Yeah,
I think they
yeah.
ran out. Again, just a nice range of family activities that were very full and very well utilized throughout that whole time period. So, great program.
All right, thank you.
The pie eating contest winner isn't present tonight.
I don't think I know who officially won. Was
Jared
it?
and Jerry.
Was it? Okay.
My
Yeah.
neighbor and our assistant city manager.
Yeah. That was
Students, I
a,
expected you to be there and you weren't there.
our staff
Thanks.
members are subject to other duties as assigned, and for Mr. Holloway, that was another duty as assigned.
Well, we did have that $1,000 check, but we're not going to give it to him. We didn't show up, right? You got to show up, right? Okay, just checking.
Be present to win.
That's right.
All right, does anyone have anything for Mr. Merriman? All right, thank you. Next is council comments and reports, so we'll start with Councilman Branham tonight.
Yeah, just want to thank Jeff for coming and speaking. Him and I, we looked at his property, discussed it with Brian about a potential variance request, but the fact with his scenario, it would affect the whole city. So that wasn't necessarily an option, so I recommended him coming back to just discuss a potential code change.
Right.
Which I
right.
told him that that's not necessarily a guarantee either, and I told him that the biggest discrepancy in that would be like his trailer's very nice, very presentable to all of his neighbors, but I said, what happens if your neighbor pulls up and he has a much more dilapidated camper or something that's not as appealing? I do think that there's ways that we could potentially rewrite the code to make it more adaptable to every person, to where they could potentially pull a trailer, camper, that sort of thing in front of their house versus necessarily being on the side. I just think it's something that we need to potentially look at.
Yeah.
So, and then I don't know a whole lot about the fence, but I am curious to hear about Mr. Raznick's case after this council meeting to just see what the deal is with it. So.
Good.
All right, thank you, Councilman Branham. Anyone have anything for Cody tonight? All right, thank you, Councilwoman Rebecca Dean.
I have nothing to add.
All right, thank you very much. Councilman Scrivens.
Thank you, Mr. President. Compliment Councilman Branham, meeting with the citizen, trying to intervene and figure out what root mean square we can come up with to get the ball moving on down the road. So, got to start here. Just wanted to say a few things, Mr. President, before we close, and I'll be brief, believe me. I want to thank everybody who came to participate in the Middle Run Baptist Church 200th anniversary celebration at the AHOP Church and at our building at 1000 East Church Street. Councilman Urschel was there, the mayor was there. It was a very great occasion. We had the president of Central State University to deliver the keynote address. Also, this past weekend, I want to compliment our city staff. This place was buzzing downtown for the Harvest on Main and Oktoberfest, and I was impressed personally. It was also Central State University's homecoming weekend, so there was plenty of people coming and going in Xenia, and also the Yellow Spring Street Fair was this past Saturday. So there was a lot of activity, bicycles, people walking. It was just great to see everybody out and enjoying the weather. Want to ask the city manager when and we're going to act on the Central State water pipeline. A couple of residents on Country Club been beating me up because I told them we was going to do their street when we did the pipeline. And I told them it'd probably be sometime in 2023. They said, well, you lied to me. I said, no, things changed that were out of our control. So if you could you comment on that?
Yeah,
please,
I can. I actually, I'm the alternate for the Issue 2 Regional Board. The city manager from Fairborn couldn't be there, so I sat for him and actually participated on the vote to authorize the water project. And I think that money is, I think design will be complete in 23, but I think the money's available in 24.
Late
and so that'll be a
24.
replacement of and upsizing of the water line, which has to occur before we can resurface the roadway,
Exactly.
but it is at least in the queue.
Right. I told him, I said if your insurance agent will allow you, I said continue on with your life table here. We'll be there shortly. Then also, Mr. President, wanted to issue a big congratulations to Coach Maurice Harden and his coaches for the Xenia Buccaneers. They're playing tonight at Doug Adams. The kickoff probably was about 7 or 8 minutes ago. When we met last time, they were 6-0. Tonight they're 8-0. We're hopefully pushing toward an epic season where we're undefeated, and if so, we'll host a couple of games in the playoffs here in Xenia. So this team is the best team since 1921 so far, but they still have to beat our record in 1964. We were 9-1 with 6 shutouts. So go Bucks. We'll be there shortly, and thank you, Mr. President, for your time.
Thank you, Councilman Scrivens.
Oh, and one thing, if you're unable to make the game live tonight, you can watch it on television on Channel 22, that's Fox 45.
Right.
And if you have an antenna TV, it's 22.2. So all the other Roku and all that, you're on your own. But they're on television tonight if you can't make the live game. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. All right, we will go to Mayor Mays.
Thank you. Thank you for that, because I have an antenna. Yes, I do. A couple of things just to note. September 26th, I was honored to host a mayor's lunch here in Xenia. I always enjoy doing that every couple of months and bringing folks from the surrounding communities, other mayors here to our community to have lunch. October 1st, as Councilman Scrivens mentioned, the Middle Run 200th year anniversary celebration. I was there. Also, our assistant city manager was there. I'm not sure if you know that.
Yeah, I forgot.
It was a really beautiful celebration, and I had to leave a little bit early because I had a secondary event, the Jeremiah Tree Gala, which I was hosting a table there as well. So those 2 events on that day. The Vintage Toy Show was that day. It's the first time I've had to miss, but I heard it was a very successful day. They always do very well, and congratulations to them and the many, many people they bring to this community. October 3rd, I attended the Candlelight Vigil that was hosted by Greene County Violence Prevention Center. They do this every October. For October is the Awareness Month Against Domestic Violence. It's a Debbie puts that on in Matheson, and she does an outstanding job of honoring folks who have both been survivors who are trying to get out of these abusive relationships, and it's a very, very good event. October 6th, I did go to the MVRPC. Really, the only thing to report, there was a change in the dues structure, which was, I believe, based on the 2020 census. Does not affect us that much. October 7th, had an opportunity to speak at the Christian Men's Fellowship Luncheon and give an update from the city. I also was there to do some last-minute planning for the Mayor's Prayer Breakfast, which is coming up a week from Friday. That's out October 21. That'll be at Emmanuel Baptist Church. 7, I believe breakfast begins at 7. Doors open at 7. Breakfast is at 7:30. If you have interest in attending, there are maybe, I think all the tables are spoken for. There are a few single tickets left that you can talk to Green Giving. They have those. Also on October 7th, I attended the grand opening for Toward Independence, the Grow Together Hydroponics Open House. They are doing a greenhouse in the basement. It's an amazing operation that they're doing over there, and they're using the lettuce that they're growing at One Bistro, and it's saving One Bistro money on a weekly basis, and it's a really neat operation. October 8th, as the city manager mentioned, Harvest on Main as well as Oktoberfest. So many people came out. I wanted to know Heba, who is our student liaison on XREC. She brought students out to help and to volunteer, was also raising money for the schools for some of their projects. Just did an outstanding job. Ryan Baker, Christina Schaefer, they just put their heart and soul into this, and it was very obvious. But I also wanted to specifically mention our churches that I was able to contact to help out with some of the kids' activities. First Church of Christ, Emmanuel Baptist, Northside Church, and Declare the Works Ministries. They all came out to have games and activities for the kids, and they just did an outstanding job. October 10th, I had a meeting with several of the board members for the Foundation of Clark State. That's a board that I have an opportunity to join and to just start getting Xenia into some of those conversations and bringing some more services to Xenia for the youth. October 12th, attended the community reception out at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Colonel Meeker, our new commander, put together an amazing reception last night for community. Our city manager was there, lots of people from our community, and it's very exciting to see some of the changes that he's bringing to the base and opening it up. Also wanted to congratulate our football team and say, go get them tonight. And then last, I wanted to mention just my condolences to you, Rebecca, and to your family. And Rebecca and I talked about this beforehand, so I have her permission to say something. And just to say that we as a council, we are supporting you and your family in prayer. Michael and I played together quite a bit. I shared with Rebecca, when we were kids, we roller skated out of the Xenia roller skating rink a lot in our culottes and played house together in the backyard. They were neighbors of mine. So I just wanted to commend 1 Thessalonians 4 to you, and the verses that talk about that we do not grieve as those with no hope. And that we know that Michael is with Jesus, that she loved her Lord and Savior very much, and we will continue to cover your family in prayer. That's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the outreach. You are in the community so much, and we know you're very busy, and we really appreciate your representation of our city. So, Vice President Urschel.
I just wanted to commend the folks at Middle Run Baptist. 200 years ago, over 200 years ago, there was a family in the South that had to purchase their freedom with a massive quantity of money just to even be able to be free. And they came to settle here in our county, and then they had to purchase land on top of that. And for most folks, that would have been the end of the story, and you would have said that they were successful. But that wasn't where it ended. That family and that father said that we need to establish a church on this land for the community as well. And that was at a great cost as well, too. And that's why we remember that family now, is because they did that. And the heritage of that church being in existence for 200 years is amazing. And very few institutions can have a purpose and stick with it for 200 years. And so it is extraordinary that we have here in our city a group of folks that have that heritage. And I was laughing with them. We've got 70 churches plus in town, but all of us are very young compared to Middle Run. So we look to Middle Run to be and thank goodness we have a church that stayed faithful for 200 years to be the example for the rest of us as well too. So just once again, commending, and it's just an honor to be with your folks there, Thomas, for that. Also got a note here from the assistant city manager. He says, I could drive back for my check of $1,000. I'm not responding to that. That's all I have tonight.
All right, thank you very much. In closing, all right, in closing,
Just really quick, I apologize. I just wanted to respond. Earlier, Councilman Urschel had a question about the lane miles.
Yeah.
I looked real quick. Allison to 2nd Street is just a little over a third of a mile.
Yeah.
And so that's about a 3-lane road. So you could factor probably a little over one lane mile.
Right, so I just want to make a point that
That's a lot.
$400,000 for a lane mile.
Yeah.
And as people say, understand that getting our roads repaved is extraordinarily expensive. It has nothing to do with not getting the right bid process or not having the right specifications. It's the cost of the removal and the cost of the glue and the asphalt and all the rest of the stuff. It's just extraordinarily expensive, so.
all right,
Sorry.
thank you. No, you're good. Okay, so just a couple things here. Also, would like to add on to Go Bucks. Congratulations, 8-0. And I believe the men's soccer team's done really well as
Xenia,
also this year. And so we'll look forward to hopefully a good report after tonight's meeting for Xenia. Also, just to remind everyone, I believe this is now posted on the school's website. Xenia Community Schools, along with their partners, are hosting another trunk or treat event. This year they're moving it from Shawnee Elementary to Xenia High School. That will be on Tuesday, October 25th, and that'll be from 6 to 7:30. So there's always at least 1,000 kids coming to that, and that's just a lot of fun. Rebecca, we appreciate your attendance tonight, and also piggyback on what the mayor said. Our deepest condolences to your family, and we'll be praying for your family. So if there's nothing else tonight, I will seek a motion to adjourn, as we have no executive session for tonight. Moved by Councilwoman Dean. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilman Branham. And at this time, we'll get a roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean. Aye. Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Mayor Mays. Aye. President Smith.
Aye. Thank you.